Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Ameriguayas. We are so excited. We have a fellow Ameriguayo here. His name is Osvaldo, but he goes by Ozzy. He started a page called Toma. Make sure you go follow it real quick. And he's going to talk to us today about that. And obviously, my partner in crime, Mary Hannah.
Bye, Safa.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Of course. Today we're going to talk about Toma, all things Tereré, Yerba Mate, which is Osvaldo's bread and butter, his jam. So he's kind of a resident expert who's going to talk to us about that. And we also have our own little Tereré.
Yes, we have our people ready today.
Always equipped with the tereré.
So we are making it a ritualistic Zoom thing today. Hopefully soon we can do this in person. But talk to us about Toma, the journey with that. What are your dreams, your aspirations, and so people can get to know you and how that started.
Yeah, of course. Again, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be joining you guys over this video call. So Toma really has been something I've been working on for a couple years now, but it's really just started to take shape the past 6 months or so. So I've always obviously drank yerba mate, especially tereré. Growing up as a Paraguayan, it was always in our household. Every time we visited Paraguay, you see people drinking it everywhere. It's a real social, cultural thing. So I grew up in and around it, but I'd say the older I got, the more I got into it, and the more I started looking into the health benefits, and the more it started making me feel a lot better from an inflammation standpoint. I played a lot of sports, so I always had knee problems, and it helps a lot with digestion. If I would eat like a lot of dairy or cheese or something like that, it kind of upset my stomach. So the next morning I drink a little bit of yerba mate, and I swear the pain goes away right away. So I was working in New York City the past 3 years or so at a sports agency, and I had a very diverse group of coworkers from all different countries around the world. And I would be drinking it in the office all the time, and it was a real conversation starter, icebreaker. A lot of people would come up to me and ask me about it, and it just I'd always start with it's a cultural thing in Paraguay and yada yada yada, and I've just gotten really proud to, one, be Paraguayan, and two, to kind of carry this tradition from our parents. And so I thought it'd be really dope, really cool to kind of start a brand, or like a lifestyle brand around it. And that's the idea, is just to have a space to share, to educate people on it, to spread the word, because it's done so many positive things for me from a social, cultural, health standpoint. So I kind of just want to share that with the world.
That's awesome. So before we get into, the myths, the health benefits, dive into it deeper, tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and what being an Ameriguayo means to you.
Yeah, of course. So I was born here. I was born and raised in New Jersey, Morristown, New Jersey. So like central Jersey, depending on what part of Jersey you're from. And I've lived in Jersey my entire life. I spent 6 years or so in DC doing my undergrad and grad studies. And what being an Ameriguayo means to me, I grew up in what we used to call Little Paraguay, which is an area of a town, Bernardsville, New Jersey, which let's say 10 years ago was just basically 95% Paraguayans. It's kind of changed since then, but yeah, I grew up in Little Paraguay, huge extended family. I have like 30 first cousins, the majority of which are Ameriguayos as well, and Ameriguayas, of course. So yeah, like I've always stayed pretty connected to my roots. My family, always growing up, we were fortunate enough to go every New Year and spend the holidays there and see our family that is back there. So to me, the things I think that tie me the most to the Paraguayan culture is, one, this is something that's really special to me. And then also I'm an avid supporter of our Paraguay national team. La Roja.
Albirroja. Oh,
Roja.
question. Are you Olimpista or Cerrista?
Ooh, we're gonna cause debate here. I'm a Cerrista, but I
Oh
mean
no,
Cerrista. My entire household. Are you both Olimpistas?
Olimpista.
I brought my
No.
pajarito with me.
That's okay. That's
El
okay.
rey de copas.
Yeah, I've heard. No, but I'm the type of person that, like, if they're not playing each other, like if Olympia's playing in like the Sudamericana or whatnot, like I'll root for them. I'm not like a hater, you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
I'm not someone that like rubs it in after we beat them like we did last time.
But like if Olympia wins, go us. That's awesome. Yeah. I think you also played soccer, right? In high school as well.
I played through high school. I played in college as well. But I like I said, I always had like really bad knees. I've had multiple knee surgeries and stuff. So I think at 31, I'm ready to hang up the boots and just watch. Just watch from the sidelines. Yeah.
Yeah.
No more surgeries for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes a toll.
Yes, it definitely does. But we just want to thank you again for joining us. I think it's very important that there's other Ameriguayas that are interested in having these conversations. And that's why Delicia and I started it. And Ozzy, you've been engaged probably since we started the page. So yeah, it's important to have these conversations. And like you said, our culture means a lot to us, and we all represent in different ways. And so we're excited to have you rep in your own way and give us that perspective as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm grateful that you guys have provided this platform for people like us to sort of connect and talk about things that we think about all the time, but don't necessarily discuss out in the open, you know?
Yeah, because like you mentioned, we have 31 first cousins, and we have these conversations with our cousins, like our primos, like at the asado and the cumpleaños, and you're like, wait a minute, I exist also outside of that. So I find it so interesting and cool that you brought Tereré to work. Like, I don't think I've ever brought it to work unless it was like a cultural event where they asked me to represent Paraguay. But it's so cool that you have it ingrained within your daily lifestyle, which it is in Paraguay. Like, if you're in country, that's what it is. But here, it's just not part of it unless you make it a part of it.
Yes.
So yeah, no, especially like in the cold winter months, like I can remember like commuting to work and like just like looking forward to getting there just so I could have my mate. Like it'd be the first thing I did every time I got to the office, and it just like calmed me. It gave me, it's weird because it calms you, but it also gives you energy. You know what I mean? It's almost like ritualistic, and yeah, like I would take it to meeting. Luckily, I worked in an environment where I could literally walk around with it in the office. I took it into meetings, like even with like clients and stuff. Yeah, so
that's awesome. I feel like our ancestors give you that Zen energy as well as a boost of energy at the same time. But yeah, that's I work with Paraguayan, so she brings it. She is an immigrant, so she was born there and she came here. And she carries it around, and I'm like, that is such a good idea. Like, I honestly didn't ever think of that, but like Delicia said, it's part of the daily life in Paraguay, and they bring it to work, especially in the hot days. It's mostly hot in Paraguay, rarely cold, but so yeah, that's awesome that you are able to integrate that and make that a part of your daily life in the United States.
Yeah, and I think another thing that kind of there were certainly a couple moments that sort of spurred me or pushed me in the direction of being like, I really want to like start exploring this further and learn a lot more about it and become an expert. And you know, when I started working in New York and I moved closer to the city, I was looking for it here in Jersey City where I live, and also in Manhattan, and it took me like a week to find yerba. Of course, back like where I grew up, there's a bunch of little ethnic grocery stores, but if you didn't grow up there or if you don't live there, you wouldn't even know. Like you can't like Google search it, you know, it's hard to find. So that was kind of frustrating to me, and I was like, wow, like I wish it was easier to access information about where to find it or what varieties are the tastiest ones, or you know, I just there's kind of a lack of information and a lack of knowledge around it, and to me, I saw that as an opportunity.
Yeah. Kind of like lacking a hub of information. And I think maybe that's what Toma is going to be, or is like that hub of information of like the different leaves, the different herbs, the different combinations, right? You can add like burrito and menta and other things that enhance the experience, which I learned because it says on the yerba thing.
Yeah, that's the cool thing. It's like it's so complex. There's so much complexity to it. Like I'll show you, for example, like this is my favorite one that I've been drinking. This is menta y boldo. So it has some herbs in it. This is really good. Drank hot as mate, and of course it's called mate when you drink it hot, and it's called tereré when you drink it cold. But this one I really like for mate when it's served hot. And then something like menta y limon. This is more sort of like a refreshing. It has that lemon taste to it, so it's a lot better to drink cold on. I mean, yeah, cold on like a really hot summer day, for example.
And
Yeah.
which yerba would you recommend for cocido? Or yeah,
Cocido. That's actually one I'm gonna have to get back to you on. I haven't. I know that it's made, and I saw one of my aunts in Paraguay actually make it a few years back, and I didn't even know that yerba went into it, right? So I think I don't know. I'd probably ask my tia about that one.
yeah. I actually made it for the first time, like maybe 2 weeks ago or so, because I never knew. And it's basically yerba quemada. So like you burn it
Yeah.
with sugar, and then you put the water, and then you filter it out or something like that. So yeah, get back to us on that and let us know which yerba works best with cocido.
Yeah.
No, I know cocido is definitely a staple, another staple in our culture, and people love that. I certainly drink cocido when I'm not drinking yerba mate.
Yeah.
So I'll get back to you on that.
Sounds
And I've
good.
also seen they've had like tea bags that are like commercialized cocido. If you don't have yerba to make it, like I think it's like curupi also, and cocido abuela or something.
Pajarito
Yeah,
also.
Yeah.
pajarito. They like commercialized little tea bags that are for cocido, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I've seen those too. And you know, that's the thing also about yerba mate, like it's kind of the ritual to me, like the act of actually dumping the yerba in and then pouring the water in over it continuously and actually taking care of and washing the instruments is like it's a process. So for some people, especially in like the American culture where you're just constantly on the go and stuff, it's not always ideal. So you can definitely purchase yerba mate in tea bags. You can buy it loose and then just purchase like the actual empty tea bags and just put it in yourself.
Yeah.
There's definitely different ways to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go
Thank you.
ahead.
I was just gonna say, I love that you mentioned that, you know, in the US, it's more kind of like the hustle, like fast paced. So part of the ritual is cleaning the equipment, and oftentimes that's why maybe people don't prepare it. It's a whole preparation. You can talk about that in details, Osvaldo. And so what I was gonna say is, I wonder if they made those tea bags to kind of I guess, fit in with that culture within the United States. I'm sure in Paraguay, it's also just easier to do that too, but it's interesting that it's very different, especially East Coast vibe. You know, we're very fast paced, like on the move, on the go. And I feel like this experience is more like laid back, super chill. Like, you know, you plan to be with friends. Usually it's done in a circle. We'll talk about that later. And we kind of pass it around, and, you know, hours go by, and here, you know, we don't really have that, I guess, unless you're with family, but it's different.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that, and I think that in the sort of rapid lifestyle here, especially like in Manhattan, working there, like I think I missed sort of that downtime where you kind of just can unwind and like,
Hmm.
you know, relax a little bit. And I think that's something that's sometimes missing in the lifestyle here a little bit. And on the flip side, like in Paraguay, it's a lot slower. Like, you know, just the pace and the lifestyle is just a lot slower. So there's more time to sit around and enjoy, you know, yerba or tereré with friends and stuff.
The ritual of it is like a meditative process,
Yeah.
and also like a reminder to take that time to like be in the present moment to, okay, let me clean the bombilla, and we'll talk about the different pieces, but the wampa and the termo and like the yerba and all of that stuff. So I think it's good to incorporate that into our fast-paced lifestyle on the East Coast. It's like let's remember some of those things that are meditative and good for us.
Yeah, 100% agree with that.
So let's dive into the history a little bit. And we know it kind of as Paraguay's, you know, yerba. And so let's have that discussion of the history. And now obviously it's super commercialized by Argentina, and other countries like Brazil and Uruguay also drink mate mostly. And Paraguay, I think they mostly drink tereré. But let's dive into the history a little bit. Ozzy, I'll let you start with that.
Sure. So, I think that, like you said, like it's consumed really, really heavily in four countries. Really, it's Paraguay, Argentina, parts of Brazil, and then Uruguay are the countries that all drink it. And but it really originated, and the more research I've done, the more I realize how sort of rich a history it is. It really originated with the Guarani indigenous tribes. So way back, I think it was like the 16th century. And there's a couple like folkloric legends about it, which are really cool. Something that I posted on my page. But basically, they would harvest it because they, you know, they were agricultural people. They would tend to the land, and they would work really long hours. So basically they would use it as a means of providing them energy, sustenance. It also suppresses appetite a little bit. So like times maybe when they didn't have things to eat or whatever that may have been, you know, it kind of serves as like a meal substitute. But it originated right in the center, in the heart of South America. And obviously in modern day geography, some of that land, you know, the geography has shifted and now includes parts of Argentina and Uruguay and Brazil. So it's spread a little bit in that region, but it really originated in Paraguay. And the plant itself, it's a holly plant that's ground up and infused and mixed with water. It's the scientific name of the plant is Ilex paraguayensis. So that speaks to the origin.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting to talk about geography because it's taking it back to Provincia Grande de las Indias, right? Knowing our geographical history and how Paraguay ended up the way it is today. Modern, how we know modern Paraguay is actually because land was stolen during the Triple Alliance War and many other wars. So I love this root connection to yerba and how it's at this core and the center of our identity in many ways because it's the geographical center of this mass land. But like you said, it's spread out to what we know as modern day other countries. But if we're looking at the history of geography, that's our land. That's the Guarani's land, right?
Yeah, bingo,
Yes,
correct.
they call it the Yerba del Paraguay, so it's it's ours. El corazón de Sudamérica. There you go.
Yeah, reclaiming our
Yeah.
identity.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so I'd say like I've definitely I love how rooted it is in Paraguayan culture and history. But equally fascinating to me has been like learning about and trying different yerbas that are produced in say Argentina or in Brazil. I've kind of branched out more because growing up I only drank Paraguayan yerba, but it's been really fascinating to try yerba from other countries, and also to meet people from other countries and learn about their customs and how it's adapted and how it's changed over the years and stuff like that. It's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like each country has their own, you know, kind of traditions or methods of how they drink it too, and what it means to them. So that's interesting that you've branched out to it. And do you notice a difference in the taste of the yerba itself?
Yeah, I do 100%. Like, for example, right now, the one I'm drinking is this Yerba Mate
Oh,
Argentina. So
okay.
Oh, super.
I haven't had this one in a little while. I've been sort of binging on Paraguayan ones, so I figured I'd switch it up. It's definitely different. And this is prepared with stevia, or they infuse stevia in it, which is like
Okay.
it's like a sugar alternative, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing I noticed was the stevia. It doesn't have any like mint or lemon taste, but the stevia definitely gives it flavor. And this is definitely a good one for mate, for hot mate, which is what they predominantly drink in all the countries outside of Paraguay. So Paraguay is known for drinking it cold, tereré. It's pretty specific to Paraguay just because
Mhm.
it gets so hot there that people drink it to cool down.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, 100%. I recently tried a Brazilian one that was really good, and theirs tends to be a lot more like polvito, like a lot
Dusty.
finer. It's a lot finer. But I
Okay.
found a really good one called Madrugada, which is specifically for tereré as well. And I have yet to try a Uruguayan one actually. So
We
that's
gotta
next
get
on my
one.
list. Yeah, that's next on my list.
Awesome. That's that is interesting. That, like, I don't know, that it's like you notice a difference in the taste, and that the Argentino one has sugar in it. Stevia, I guess, sugar substitute.
Yeah, yeah. This is like the second one I've tried this. The second time I've tried this one, and I forgot like how pronounced that taste is, but not all of them do. And even within Argentina, like you'll find all different types of blends and varieties. It just depends, like, especially here in the US, it's not necessarily easy to find too much variety. Like in most
Mm-hmm.
stores, you'll go and you'll find the same generic brands for the most part, and they're usually
Mhm.
generic blends. But again, you have to know like where to look and to find, like, there's a little place in Little Paraguay, or what was formerly known as Little Paraguay, this tiny little ethnic grocery store on the corner by my mom's house that sells like, they have like every flavor I've ever seen of like Purupi and Campesino, which are Paraguayan ones. It's absurd. Like the display there, it's like you won't find that anywhere else, but it's this tiny little supermarket on a random corner in like a residential area. So
Yeah.
yeah, just trying to like, I've just been really just exploring in this area, Jersey City and in Manhattan, and trying to find different places and try different kinds. And that's kind of the idea, is to just bring more knowledge to it and make it more accessible for people, whether that be through recommendations or providing, resources from where they can buy them, or whatever it may be.
Awesome. So talking about not being able to necessarily find it or having easy access to the yerba mates, let's talk about a brand that, you know, kind of grew, and it's kind of in a monopoly, I would say, right now. It's in its own world. And I believe it was an Argentino and a Californian dude, I think, who started the brand, Guayaquil, right? Did I pronounce that right?
Correct.
So yeah, let's talk a little bit about that brand and just kind of how they got started. Ozzy, I know you know a little bit more about them as well, and how that makes you feel.
Yeah, sure. So like when I really started digging deeper into it and doing research and seeing what was out in the market here, that's if you search yerba mate from the US, that'll be the first thing that pops up on a search. So Guayaquil is based out of California. You're right. It was started by an Argentino, so they have ties back to South America. And I thought it was really interesting at first glance, for sure. Their target audience was college students, so they use like ambassadors on college campuses, and they pass it out, and they've adjusted their product, which kind of goes hand in hand with what we were talking about. about the faster paced lifestyle and wanting things on the go and kind of wanting instant gratification, I guess. They put it into like a tea, which is really good. It's really tasty. They infuse the yerba mate into a tea. And then they have a sort of cool business model where they're working with the actual producers in South America, and they're ensuring, you know, all the ingredients are organic and it's, you know, fair labor standards, and people are getting paid for their work down there. So they've been around for a good 15 years. And they certainly have a good hold on their target market. It's just not, it doesn't necessarily align with what it is to me, or how I sort of the kind of brand that I consider when I'm drinking yerba mate. And, you know, what I noticed on their page, first off, was sort of their vibe is really kind of, like I said, college students, but it's based out of California. So it's kind of like more of like a hippie vibe and music, and it's more that type of vibe. Whereas the way I see it, it's more sort of the cultural, social aspect, sitting around. And then I'm also very into sports. So for me, it's more of like a refreshing thing when you drink it cold, especially when after like a good workout or playing sports with friends or something like that. So that was the only thing that kind of diverted me away from it, was just obviously the product itself is adapted and commercialized here. And also just the image of it, it doesn't necessarily resonate with me, but you know, they've got a great product.
Right.
I think I could be wrong with my research, but I think some of their land that they own as Guayaki is in Paraguay, actually.
Yeah.
So when I first did my research on them, like a couple of years ago, because I was also came across H2 Yerba, which is like another company, I think started out of New York or New Jersey, I think. But they haven't been as vocal as Guayaki. And so that's what I found kind of interesting. If an Argentinian and a Californian started it, but it's on Paraguayan land, was a little problematic in many ways, because you don't see that much of Paraguayan identity represented in that brand. And so that's why I really like Toma's like mission, because it's Paraguay's at the root of that and at the heart of that. Obviously, since we're Ameriguayas, you're Ameriguayo, and we're having this discussion. But I thought when I first was introduced to like Guayaki and maybe other smaller yerba mate like canned commercial things, I was like, yeah, this is great. But the soul heart of it is Paraguay. And like I mentioned before, Guayaki has, I think, ownership of some of yerba mate territory within Paraguay. So I think that's so fascinating and interesting, because Paraguay is not at the root of their marketing, and they're not Paraguayan or Ameriguayo. So I just find that very interesting.
Yeah, to that same sentiment, when I was doing my research quickly before we hopped on, I saw that they mentioned Paraguay, and they have like a little video, I think, of them harvesting the plant. So I'm not sure if they do have, I don't know, but it's interesting going back to the founders are, number one, Argentino and someone from California. And then, you know, they're advertising it not necessarily as Paraguayan. I think when I first saw it, I'm pretty sure that they mentioned it was Argentina. I'm pretty sure, because kind of similar to the both of you. When I first saw it, I was like, what? I was like, where is the mention of Paraguay? Like, that's the heart of yerba mate. But it is good. I drink it. I actually have some here to give me some energy. So I will give it to them. It's like quick and it's good, but it's, I don't know. There's some issues there too, as well as how they represent.
That's like, I've heard similar sentiments from other people, just kind of like Paraguayans, especially Paraguayan Americans, that are just kind of like, yeah, the marketing around it and how they sort of advertise it isn't necessarily authentic, especially coming from our perspective. So I totally get that. I think that them having land in Paraguay probably has to do with cost of labor, and it's cheaper there. Like, everything's cheaper there for the most
Yeah.
part. But yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the logistics of it all, like from the business end, I'm curious to see what that looks like. I think their corporate, I'm pretty sure is, or like their leadership is 22% people of color, I think. From like my quick research, I was trying to like find out like, yes, they outsource and maybe have workers in South America, but number one, are they getting paid American fair wages? And number two, or US dollars? And number two, what does your corporate look like? Do you have representation in your corporate office in the US? So those are some things too that I was very interested in kind of like diving deeper in, because it kind of goes to the whole idea of capitalism and colonialism and being commercialized and, you know, profiting off these people. And I feel like as Paraguayos, Paraguayas, we're very like protective of our roots and our culture, is what I'm getting from this conversation. And it hits us a little bit when it's not like, I don't know, represented in the most authentic way, like Ozzy said.
Yeah. And almost like hitting the point of, is it borderline appropriation? Is it borderline exploitation? So, and I think it's important to honor that how we feel in that way, because we're authentically 100% Paraguayan. Like, our family roots are from there. So, I think it's an interesting conversation that brings me to an article that we connected about with cultural appropriation and terere, and really dissecting that. And obviously we'll put that in the comments too, like what articles we've read and what has helped us process a lot of things. So I don't know if that's something people are interested in talking about.
Yeah, I mean, you referenced that article, and when I stumbled upon it, I just like, it just resonated with me so much. Like, it felt like I could have almost been the one writing it, and it's like somebody in like Minnesota or something who is from Paraguay but grew up here. So I just wanted to quote like one of the lines from it, which I think it kind of sums it up. It says, "Putting yerba mate in a soda water is not blasphemous, but it is disrespectful to do so without acknowledging mate's traditional uses, or at least where it's coming from." Which, you know, that, yeah, we can just drop the mic there and leave it at that. But it's not to hate by any means on what they're doing or their intention or their target market. It's just that, we wanna put on for Paraguay, and like, if it's gonna blow up and yerba mate is gonna become a big thing here, then we want it to at least be somewhat connected to and tied to our culture and our history and how we view it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and like the ritual respect for the ancestry, right? It's going back to the ancestral roots of indigenous livelihood, right? You'd mentioned at the beginning of the call how they used it for their own rituals, and if they needed to, didn't have enough food, maybe they drink it to suppress appetite. So it really goes back to deep indigenous roots before colonialism. So that's our direct lineage and our direct connection to that. So to really have it commercialized and capitalized in this way is very exploitative and capitalistic and colonialist. So what she says in this article really connected with all of us and really like pulled at our heartstrings. We're like, oh yes.
Yeah, it's definitely also important to note, I feel like, in the space of, diversity and inclusion and all the work that Alicia does, the indigenous people they are obviously the root of this. They are who passes down these traditions to us. And I think it's important to understand, like, in modern times, just like in the US, in Paraguay, indigenous people don't have the same rights of, let's say, a mestiza or mestizo paraguaya who's like mixed Euro and Guarani. So, you know, they started all of this in su tierra, like, and then, you know, colonialism, all that. And then now it's like, number one, are they getting paid fair wages, like with this particular company, if you are outsourcing? And number two, they don't get to reap the benefits, I guess, of it, because in country, they're also suppressed. So that's also important to know, kind of just like the history and what it is now, and where those people are now is not where they were, you know, centuries ago. So that's why I feel like for us, it's important to honor it, and rather than appropriate the culture. And we try to do that as authentically as we can. And also us being Americans too, just like understanding our history as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's well put.
Yes.
So, Ozzy, what else do you want us to know about Yerba Mate? We'll give you the last words. Also, tell us what your page is, where we can find you, all that good stuff.
Okay. So the page is at Toma Yerba Mate on Instagram right now. And I guess, you know, I'd love for anyone to, any and everyone, doesn't have to be Paraguayans, doesn't have to be Paraguayan Americans. The idea is for it to be inclusive of any and everyone who loves health, who loves community, who loves to share, and, you know, who's interested in tradition and culture. So really it's just meant for me to provide a space for people to come and have a dialogue like we're having here, to share recommendations, for me to pass on some of the knowledge I've acquired in my life and in the research I've done. And yeah, just like put on for Paraguay, put on for Yerba Mate in general, and just, the idea is just good vibes, because that's how I do it. It's just good vibes. It's sharing. It's compartir con, you know, amigos, con familia. That's what it means to me. So I kind of want that to exude through the page and through the brand, and it'll evolve naturally as we go. But at Toma Yerba Mate on Instagram, please give us a follow, like. It's much appreciated.
Yes, like, share, follow. And we love that. We love to hear it. We're glad that you're starting that journey and using it as a space to educate and share and all that good stuff. And I think that's it. Go follow Ozzy, and we are looking forward to more conversations.
Yes, let's cheers our Yerba Mate, Tereré Mate.
Hold on. Cheers.
Cheers. Salud.
Cheers.
Salud.
Salud. Rojeju Tereré, Rojeju Paraguay.
Until the next one, my friends.
Thanks, guys.